So I'm Stacey, freelance SEO, content marketing type, talking about links. My first job in SEO was 2009 with an agency in Manchester, and my day looked a little bit like this. So I would send begging emails to people with nice websites, please take my money and give me a link. And when I wasn't doing that, I'd be using Unique Article Wizard. For those of you not familiar with this so bad that it was good thing, Unique Article Wizard let you, well, you wrote an article, 300 words, 5 paragraphs, and then you rewrote it twice. Not a good article, something like, you know, a history of waste management or something crap that had your keywords in. And you'd rewrite it twice, the same 5 paragraphs, same sentence order, and you just reword it a bit. So then you had 3 very similar, equally crap articles. And then you'd upload them to Unique Article Wizard and it would spin them and turn it into hundreds of articles, getting worse every time. And then the magic would happen. Then it would upload them and send them off to hundreds of terrible article directories and blogs that had signed up to receive crap content from Unique Article Wizard. You'd get loads of links and everybody would be high-fiving. And I kind of had a little bit of a love affair with dodgy links a few years ago because it was just so easy. And you look back and now, oh, that's a picture of my nan. You look back now, it really is. You look back now and think, there's no way in hell that crap worked. But oh, it did. So we had number 1s for IVA, debt management, accident claims, cheap holidays, all through shit links. The clients knew that that's what we were doing. We were going to buy these links, we were going to article spin and all that good stuff because everybody else was, and if they wanted to compete, that was what they were going to do. And they were all quite happy to do it. And they all got years out of these rankings because Google was a little bit slow at catching up. But part of my remit and the reason they brought me in was a copywriter by background, and they wanted me to start making link building a bit more sustainable. The 2 founders of the agency that I was at, where I started and actually ended my agency days, kind of foresaw Google getting smart enough at some stage that they could algorithmically tackle most of this stuff. So my job was to start bringing in different ways of building links that weren't quite so scuzzy. Biggest challenge back then really was that in every single niche you were competing in, you were going to be competing with people who were buying links and winning buying links. And trying to be the only guy who's building 10 links a week the hard way when someone else is building hundreds and outranking you for that very reason is pretty tough. You do still get some of that these days. By the way, there are definitely still results pages in which the top ranking websites are still doing crap like this. Mostly now things like payday loans, gambling, some of the finance areas, some very competitive travel areas. It does still happen, not to the same scale, and is often accompanied with some of the cleaner stuff too. But generally speaking, I think if you're looking particularly for a big brand or a site that's actually going to last some time, you're going to be looking at more clean link building methods. It is worth me saying, as may be obvious, I actually have no fundamental issue with paid link building. I think if you're transparent with your clients, transparent with your boss, you've got a compelling reason for doing it, and you're mitigating the risks in whatever way you can, fine, if it works for you. It's not something I do for my clients anymore. If someone contacts me about it, I tend to refer that kind of stuff on. I do still do it on my test sites. And I think in SEO, if you're not testing things yourself, you're kind of reliant on third-party reports, which have their limitations. The single most effective link building stunt that I've seen over recent years wasn't a link building stunt at all. You probably recognize this picture. This is October 2012. And Felix Baumgartner standing at the open door of a pod in the stratosphere about to free fall back to Earth in the name of a marketing stunt for Red Bull. Every single time I watch that back, I just think, I don't know whether it's insane or genius or a bit of both, and where did they find somebody crazy enough to do this? But 8 million people watched that live on YouTube. That set a record at the time. 43 million people since. I've watched a 90-second highlights reel. And this is the Google Trends graph for Red Bull, not for Felix Baumgartner, the guy who's diving out of a pod at the edge of space. This is Red Bull in the month that the Stratos jump took place. It almost certainly wasn't an SEO campaign. But as an SEO, I of course like to go and have a look at the impact that's had on links. And at its peak, almost 27,000 different sites were linking to redbullstratos.com. These days, more like 9,300. But if I asked you to reel off the biggest publications in the world that you could think of, I'd be pretty confident that redbullstratos.com has got a link on almost every single one that you name. So we could probably wrap this up now and just say if we all want massive links, then we just need to send a guy to the edge of space and ask him to jump back to Earth, job done. And all you're going to need is somebody crazy enough to do it and 50 million euros. Yeah, I don't get 50 million euro link building budgets, unfortunately. So let's get a little bit more real and practical. And I think there's three things that still remain true about link building right now, and that's that it's hard. And that kind of works in your favour, because if you're doing it better, then you're probably one step ahead of your competition. It is still imperative in pretty much every single sector I've come across to build links, as in you're not going to rank without them. And I think we're seeing a trend of a lot of SEOs and SEO agencies kind of relying just on outreach to do link building. So I've lost count of the number of people I've spoken to over the last 2 years who, when you talk about how you're building links these days, it's, oh, we're doing outreach, which seems like a bit all eggs in one basket for me. There's a ton of stuff changed, of course, but actually there's things that I was doing in 2010 and 2011 that work better now than they did back then. So we were calling it guest posting. I never did the massive scale network guest posting stuff, but I would go to newspapers, naively more than anything. It's like, you guys want good content, right? So I go to newspapers and big magazines and sites like Mashable and the Huffington Post and get columns on their sites for my clients. Call it feature writing now. PRs do it. But for me, it was just guest posting for a link back in 2010. Research-based pieces. This one was mega primitive, a little bit embarrassing. January 2011. Google hadn't yet released data about how much traffic was coming from mobile. So we pooled all of our clients' analytics data, went back 2 years and found this story about how in 18 months, the proportion of visitors coming from mobile had gone from 0.02% to 8.19 or something. And that got quite a lot of coverage and links. And then Google released their own data a couple of years later. Now that one's shit. So essentially the principles are the same, but we kind of have got better at it over recent years. To build links, it's just simply about creating assets that people want, need, or care about. But that's just another cliche. So let's get practical and talk about some ways in which you can do that don't rely on producing a massive content asset and emailing thousands of people. And the first one is people stories and case studies. And I think one of the things that separates SEO and PR people is mindset. And I think that as SEOs, we start with keyword research. How do people look for our products and services? So we're already all about the products and services in the business. Whereas I think PR people are generally better at coming from the angle of the people in the business. So this works because people are full of stories, and journalists essentially want nice stories. My nan used to say people are just made of skin, bones and stories. And quite right, I think. Starting a company on its own is interesting enough to get coverage. This is one of my clients in TechSpark because she started a company. This is the Evening Standard writing about the founder of Dalston Cola because he started a company and happens to be from London. This is Talented Ladies Club writing with links, an interview with, as they do quite frequently, a female founder of a company. So talk to people in your company, if you're the company, to yourself, whoever's involved with you. Dig out some stories. You don't have to have climbed Everest or saved a life. It would do no harm, obviously. But things like why? Why did you start the company? What was the inspiration? What challenges have you overcome to get to where you are today? And what challenges still remain to get to the end goal? And where did it all happen? Where were you brought up, educated? Where was that light bulb moment that led to the business? Where was it founded? It's a simple Google search to find publications that run this kind of content and link to people constantly. But this website, localmediauk.org, gives you a database, A to Z, of all the local newspapers and regionals in the UK. If you've got a founder from a random town that maybe nobody's heard of, the local press in that town probably wants a good news story. I know how PR works, but I still read this stuff in the local press. I still read it constantly because I'm genuinely interested. I think we all get inspired by the people who feel like it could be us. And that's why these stories work. It's not, as you might hear, because local press have no news. It's because they're good stories. And there's loads of business publications. I've listed 20 there on a spreadsheet as a starting point for you. These are 20 business publications that regularly run features, profiles, interviews with business founders, regardless of sector. Look at that as a starting point. There are hundreds of these, but there's link sources there waiting because you've got stories hidden in the people within the business. The second one is press features, or as I would have called it, guest posting on newspaper websites a few years ago. And it works because journalists have a job to do. They're paid to write stuff that people are inspired by or educated by. And I think in particular, educated by for features is a big deal. Because journalists aren't doctors. They're not necessarily experts in travel. They can't be an expert in all the things they write about. So they frequently turn to experts to make sure what they're putting together is accurate and as insightful as it can be. Example, business advice using, linking to and using some advice from a business advisor from Startup Loans. What the Express have here pitched as exclusive. Experts reveal the tips and tricks to get you an upgrade on your next flight. It's one expert from Destination 2. I know that because I was working on that campaign. And Hannah, who was heading up the PR at Techmark, where I was at the time, was liaising with journalists like this all the time. You know, I think your readers would be interested in this. You guys seem to get a lot of talk about this. I've got an expert who can pull X together for you, and doing that frequently to land links on those sorts of publications. Newspapers publish this stuff every single day. The most easy way to make sure that it's your clients or your business that they're posting about is to have contacts and relationships, and that's absolutely useless to say because if you haven't got them already, you get nowhere. So going back to the beginning, start by looking for features calendars and media kits. You can just perform some Google searches like this. Simply Marie Claire Editorial Calendar will give you just that. Or you can do some advanced Google searches where you're using file type, PDF, media kit in url.co.uk. You will find them. There are a few distinct differences between a features calendar and a media kit. A features calendar is basically just in one format or another a list of things a publication is going to write about with varying degrees of how specific they are about it, and loosely when. Sometimes it's a month, sometimes it's a quarter, sometimes it's down to a week. A media kit is set up to sell advertising. And although you don't want to buy advertising at this point, there's some really valuable information in there, which we'll talk about. Examples. USA Today makes publicly available the loose topics it will be writing about for the whole year at the start of the year. They go into more detail on further pages within their editorial calendar too, certain events that they're interested in covering on different sections of the website. Condé Nast in their media kit give you everything they know about the people that they're writing for, down to how much these people spend on interior design over the course of a year. Ad Age, again, they will give you by month. This one's designed for print, but it often reflects what's online. Exactly what they're going to be writing about, the topic that's going to be continuous throughout that particular issue. They are set up to sell ads, but they will tell you what someone's writing about and when, and who they're writing it for. This is Yours magazine. Don't contact a media kit sales email, unless you do want to buy advertising, obviously. Instead, look for the features desk and look for the reporters on the features desk. Or simply go through the site, look for similar features, and find the writers of those features. And start making contact. For every editorial calendar you'll find online, there'll be 10, 15 that are not online. Get in touch. It's actually my favourite way to make contact for the first time with a journalist or a publication I've never spoken to, because it's a much easier, less cold, hard in. Back when I was at Techmark, Hannah and her team used to, every 6 months, do a big distribution of emails to publications all over the world asking for media kits. And they had an 80-odd% response rate, which you never get from a cold pitch, ever. And it wasn't always, yeah, okay, yeah, here it is. Sometimes it was, we've not got one, but here's a spreadsheet that might help. Or, do you know what, I'm the wrong person. Let me put you in touch with such and such a body. When I've been doing this over the past few months, I'm finding, despite the fact that journalists' inboxes are fuller than ever, response rates are still really good. And actually I'm getting emails back from people I've never spoken to saying, do you know what, I haven't got an editorial calendar to hand, but I'm working on this thing right now, can you help? And those are the best kind of emails. When you know what they're writing and when and who they're writing it for, pitching a feature idea is a whole load easier. If you're in the inbox at the right time with the right content, you're much likely to get a yes than if you go in and saying, I've got this survey about dogs, when they're doing research for a river cruising piece. Third one, Creative Commons image distribution, probably my favourite single tactic if I had to choose something. And it works because writers need imagery. Not every writer can go and either buy licensing for their own photographs or can go off and take their own photographs. And that's why millions of people will perform a Creative Commons search looking for images that are licensed to Creative Commons. In other words, they can be used in exchange for an attribution. In this case, we're looking for a link. They'll go to the Creative Commons search engine or Google, and you can actually filter by license in Google, or Flickr itself and look for Creative Commons images. If someone's writing about something that relates to your business and they're using images that you can give them, then that's the way for you to get in there with an asset that they need and therefore get these links. Example, I produced a bank of images. I say I produced it. The work experience person produced it. But I wrote the how-to. And it was of banks, basically, around Manchester. This is the Canary linking to MoneyBright, which at the time, I should give it some context. It was an old test site that we had, agency side. At the time, it was a PPI lead gen site. And building links to PPI was really hard work because it was just so spammy. But the Canary, Business Reporter, and hundreds of other sites actually took these images and linked to them. Again, Vice used an image of Edinburgh Playhouse from a theatres collection we distributed and linked to a dancewear retail client. European Cooperation in Science and Technology, using an image in a press release they distributed worldwide actually, linking to my client. The image is very simple. It's actually me holding a phone. Not overly complex at all. I'm going to go through a brief how-to on this, and I've included a link for a more detailed one. But first, it's just about identifying the images that people need and want, with relevance at the core. So as an example, we were working with a firm of criminal lawyers. And they were like, okay, we actually have a load of images of Mauritius. Do you want them? So, well, the only time someone's going to use an image of Mauritius is if they're writing about Mauritius, which is all to do with criminal law. So, no, we don't want them. And that's the kind of relevance that you can easily fall into the trap of missing. You sort of think, well, I've got these images already. They look great. Let's distribute them. Think relevance. We went off and Googled what images people were using when they were writing about criminal law, criminal trials, crime statistics, criminal rehabilitation. And we found actually commonly people were using images of courthouses, probation service buildings and things like that. And in certain cities we identified that this imagery didn't exist under Creative Commons. There was very few of it, Creative Commons licensed, very few images, and people were either using crap ones because it was all that was there, or they were using paid for ones and it looked like they weren't necessarily paying. So we knew that we had an angle. We reverse image searched some of the Creative Commons images that were out there and found that they were being used a lot. So we're like, okay, yes, we can make a better bank, and that worked quite well. Similarly, making the decision to do a bank of images of banks, we just looked up what images exist of Lloyd's Bank already, and that was 4 of the ones that existed. They're a bit naff, they're there. Reverse image searched a few of them, and people are actually using them, even though they are naff. So that told me, first of all, yes, people do want these images, but secondly and most importantly, we can do better. So that's the first bit, is work out what images you can produce that people will need when they're writing about the thing that you want to be linked from. And then go off and create them. If you're a photographer, it's a little bit easier for you. If you're not a photographer, you can do what I do, which is have a go, and it's going to be hit and miss. Or just go and work with a photographer, professional, hobbyist, student. You might know a photographer already, or an illustrator or a graphic designer if you're going to do illustration rather than photography. But I would say create them, or at least use some that you've never ever used before or distributed, even on social or in a brochure. Start with a fresh bank. Distribution, the easiest way to do it, I've tried multiple different ways, is Flickr. Flickr is free and easy, basically. When you're uploading photos to Flickr, make sure you set your license as Creative Commons, which is available in the settings, but then treat this page like you would any page on your website from an SEO point of view. The title of the photo will become the page title on the page that hosts the photo on Flickr. The description that you put in will become the meta description. Use keywords, make it read well, make it unique, and at the end of your description, include an attribution instruction. How do you want people to credit when they actually use this photo? In this case, like, please credit such and such a website, please link to such and such a website. Go to all that effort of putting the attribution instruction in, and then everybody will ignore you anyway, which is nice. I did an analysis a couple of weeks ago of the last 6,100 usages of images that I've distributed across hundreds of images since 2013, and only 5% of the time people credited properly. It's not malice. Sometimes you can see how many actually link to Flickr. They just haven't read the description. So people are a bit crap at that. Don't look at this as passive, therefore, for link building. You probably will build links even if you just upload and let it go. But you're much better tracking people using them, checking the attribution, and chasing with a nice thanks for using that. Would you mind updating the attribution as per this on Flickr? You can manually reverse image search all your images if you have way more time than you know what to do with. Or you can just use Pixie, which is free for tracking, actually. Their business model monetizes people who are chasing financial compensation when they've had fully copyrighted images stolen. Pixie, upload all your images, and you'll be notified every time someone uses one of your images. Great little tool. These come and go. I've used a few. This is my favorite at the moment, but you know, I'm fickle. Might change my mind next week. There is the full process that I'm using for that. I'll make sure the deck's distributed later anyway. But that's got a bit more detail and then I can go through at the moment. And then the fourth thing is statistics-related queries. Ranking for stats queries works because everybody needs sources. If you're writing a story, you have to have a credible source, unless you're the Daily Mail. In 2014, I did a survey again with Techmark, surveyed 2,000 smartphone owners about how they use their phone, quite a lot of coverage. I say promotion starts here. Promotion probably started a month before when I was emailing journalists and saying, I'm thinking of doing this. You know, anything you want me to ask for you, or what do you think of the idea? But the post-launch promotion started there, ran to about March, from November 2014 to March 2015. And at the end of it, we had links from just shy of 60 domains. And they were good ones. So we'd hit our target, quite happy. 1 year and 0 more work later, and that was 181 referring domains. And these are equally as good. These are really high authority sites. And actually over time, you can see the number of linking domains up until about a year ago, so we got a good 3 years out of this, just kept creeping up and up and up. January this year, statistics about, a survey based around stress causes treatments, what you do when you're feeling stressed, for a client who does biomarker tracking around cortisol. Active promotion, again, Hannah was involved here, and she landed some really good links. Only just a handful of really solid placements. And now actually it's probably twice what it was on this screenshot actually. The links just keep going up on their own with no more input. And it's because they rank. So if you search stress statistics, Forthwith Life is #1. Stress Statistics UK, Stress Statistics 2018. And hundreds of people make that search every month and they're looking for a source. This even works though if you haven't done your own data sourcing. So these are not things I've been involved with. I just quite like the fact that they get links. This is the Priory's website. And this piece of content is mediocre at best. It's a paragraph of text and then bullet points containing other people's statistics that they've just quoted at the end. It's got links from 20 referring domains, and they're not bad domains either. They're pretty good. There's some pretty notable news sites in there. When you look into the links, it's just people citing them as a source when they're writing about eating disorders themselves. 20 is never going to set the world alight. But 20 links to a blog post is 20 links more than most blog posts will ever get. This one's better, petsecure.com.au, Australian pet insurance provider. They went off and collated data from all around the world about pet ownership statistics. They didn't survey people, they didn't buy data, they just collated publicly available data and turned it into quite nice, easily readable graphics. 66 referring domains so far, it's going up all the time. And It's just because they rank. They're in the top 3 in the UK and US for pet ownership statistics, and they're the position 1 in Australia, ranking other countries as well. Start by researching. Same old keyword research. I use keywordfinder.com. There's tons of other tools out there to do this quickly. What statistics and numbers are people looking for in your field? These are just a few different examples. Look at those as your primary keywords. This is the main area when it comes to optimizing the page. And then look at variance too. For everyone searching statistics, some people are going to say how many, or average, or how common it is. So look up those as well. Unless you're working with a powerhouse of a website, you probably won't rank on launch. This is the Search Console position data for that stress piece. And when we first launched, on average, we were ranking around position 25 for all these queries. When we started landing a couple of links, the rankings went up. And as the rankings went up, more people found us. And then they linked to us because they used our statistics. So the rankings went up again. Until we were in position 1 for everything, and now it's being used all the time. So, most of these projects for me tend to start as big outreach projects anyway, but if you are just collating third-party data that maybe isn't newsworthy, isn't something you want to outreach, then you probably won't build links that way first. Use PPC. If you know that when someone searches stress statistics or pet ownership statistics or personal debt statistics, if you know they're looking for a source to link to, as we can be pretty confident of, and you're not there organically, show them your site through AdWords. The clicks are much lower cost than commercial clicks. I know actually a lot of my clients on their commercial PPC campaigns negative match on statistics. They don't want to rank for statistics queries because no one's buying anything, and that makes the costs lower. Unlike images, this one actually is a bit more passive. Well over 90% of people in my experience link the first time. But it is worth tracking mentions and just chasing links where someone doesn't. If you want to get your own proprietary data, surveys, 1Poll and 3Gem tend to be my go-to guys for big surveys, but you're looking at about £1,500 plus to buy data. Google surveys, Taluna quick surveys, you can do things at about £100 plus there. There's tons of free data sources too. You just need to Google that and you'll find loads. Freedom of information data, really great. If you haven't used the Freedom of Information Act much before, take a look. Just Google it, you'll find the government website. You can manage the process yourself if there's something you want to know. You can just email the right body with the right things to say. But whatdottheyknow.com is a free website that manages the whole process for you, end to end. AskTheEU.org is one that does the same for the EU institutions. For now, don't get me started on bastard Brexit. And finally, before I go on a political rant, offer your suppliers case studies and testimonials. Works because B2B companies need them to build trust. That your testimonial, your story, your case study is an asset that they require. Any good B2B site is using testimonials in one way or another, even if it's just a paragraph on their homepage or an entire dedicated section. That's accountants, supply chain software, IT support, waste management. They're all using them. So pull together a list of your suppliers. Whether it's your cleaner, your recruitment agency, your training provider, the person who delivers your desks, whoever it is, whatever you've used them for, pull together a list of them and shortlist your suppliers. The ones that you're happiest with are the ones you want to focus on. A sentence or two, just for your own knowledge before you contact them, about the positive impact that working with them has had on your business. Don't wait to be asked. Get in touch with them and tell them why you want to share your experiences. You want all the links? No, don't tell them that. That comes later. Start with why you actually think that it's a story worth sharing. What positive impact have they had on your business? I can't remember a single time, actually, that someone has said, no, we don't want your testimonial, actually. No, we don't. And actually, once they've agreed to take your testimonial, no one wants to be the guy who says, yeah, I'll take your testimonial, but I'm not linking. Not only have you offered them a testimonial, you're a paying customer. So it's generally a win-win situation. And I would argue it's editorially relevant. If you're saying that their service has had a positive impact on your business, I think it's fair that people should be able to see more about your business. Please don't be that person who gives a testimonial or a case study to a terrible supplier because they've got a really good website and you want to link on it. People will make buying decisions based on your testimonials, so try and refrain from doing that regardless of the link possibility. And the final piece of advice I give you on link building is just don't ever rely on one single tactic. All of these things do that same thing. It's just different ways of finding things that people want need or care about, but make sure you diversify. If Creative Commons licensing was outlawed tomorrow and all the images disappeared, I would lose some links I'm really quite happy with, and I'd be a bit miffed. But I wouldn't lose all my links. I'd probably lose about 15%. So do diversify and don't rely on one single thing all the time. Thank you.